Yeah, this is between the placement problem and the reconciliation problem. Philosophical Naturalism Today by Mario de Caro in Topoi. And it's a little short paper. I'm not entirely sure what it is, but we're going to talk about some like little problems in philosophical naturalism. So, okay, it's double columned, so it's not actually as short as I thought, but that's okay. I mean, it's going to be like, 16 pages, which is fine. And as always, feel free to ask questions. Let me know if you got anything to say. Something's good, something's bad, something doesn't make sense. Just let me know. It's fine. So, scientific naturalism and the placement problem. Scientific naturalism, the conception according to which the natural sciences and possibly physics alone set the limits of both ontology and epistemology, is characterized by a strong monistic tendency. This is the thing. It's a monism. There is only one thing. That's the mon prefix there. So it's like not a dualism, it's just a monism. So writes, for example, Alex Rosenberg. Alex Rosenberg is a big philosopher of science. What is the world like? It's fermions and bosons and everything that can be made up of them, and nothing that can't be made up of them. All the facts about fermions, bosons determine or fix all the other facts about reality and what exists in this universe or any other, if, as physics may end up showing, there are other ones. In effect, scientism's metaphysics is to more than a first approximation given by what physics tells us about the universe. The reason we trust physics to be scientism's metaphysics is its track record of fantastically powerful explanation, prediction, and technological application. If what physics says about reality doesn't go, that track record would be a totally inexplicable mystery or coincidence. Let me point something out to you folks. We've got fermions and bosons. These are two kinds of molecules. It's kind of like saying, things that have charge and things that don't have charge. So it's either has or not having a property. And then we also have the and conjunction here. Let me just point this out to you. There's logic in this statement. You do not get logic in physics. So even though you say that, your actual statement of the thing that you said is not what you think it is in my world. You have to have logic, and the way you're actually framing fermions and bosons annoys me because it's basically saying something that has charge and something that doesn't have charge. Yes, that's a logical truth, but it's also vacuous. Oh, thank you, Ivan Neal. Half integer spin or integer spin. Basically, that's what it's saying. It's having one or the other. And it's like saying it's true or false. It's like, yeah, but that you define it to be covering all the things then. So, thank you for correcting my physics. I apologize. My physics is not great. But, I did know enough to make my argument there. To say, look, it's like saying has spin or has a different kind of spin. That's it. And so it's a tautological statement. It's kind of like always true. And so there's logic coming in right here. So you got to be careful, even at this level. The same Rosenberg boldly draws the consequences of such a strict view. Science forces upon us a very disillusioned take on reality. It forces us to say no in response to many questions to which most everyone hopes the answers are yes. These are the questions about purpose in nature, the meaning of life, the grounds of morality, the significance of consciousness, the character of thought, the freedom of the will, the limits of human self-understanding, and the trajectory of human history. End quote. Other less strict scientific naturalists, such as John Searle, believe that the natural sciences taken as a whole have ontological and epistemological primacy. Sorry, music's getting annoying to me. Ontological primacy, while some natural sciences like biology are in principle irreducible to physics. Okay, so now you got physics and then biology, and they don't quite mix. All versions of scientific naturalism, however, face the so-called placement problem that concerns the features of the ordinary view of the world that, at least prima facie, do not fit into the scientific view of the world. Think of consciousness, moral properties, free will, and intentionality. This is how Hugh Price introduces this problem. And these are all philosophers of science they're talking about. So Hugh Price is another philosopher of science. If all reality is ultimately natural reality, how are we to place moral facts, mathematical facts, meaning facts, and so on? How are we to locate topics of these kinds within a naturalistic framework thus conceived? John Searle makes an analogous point. How can we square a conception of ourselves as mindful, meaning-creating, free, rational, etc. agents with a universe that consists entirely of mindless, meaningless, unfree, non-rational, brute, physical particles? Scientific naturalists appeal to three strategies for addressing this problem. First, they try reductionism, according to which the recalcitrant features of the ordinary view of the world can be reduced to scientifically acceptable elements. Examples of the approach are the moral reductionism of the Cornell School and the Michigan School, Penelope Mattie's naturalized Platonism regarding mathematical properties, the attempts of the advocates of neuroaesthetics. Nice word, neuroaesthetics. The revival of, so I guess that would be an attempt to show how beauty can be mapped onto the brain. So that would be the aesthetics of the neurology of beauty or aesthetics. The revival of type identity theory regarding the mind-body problem. However, even though many scientific naturalists agree that reductionism is the right approach to the placement problem, no concrete proposal of reduction has won enough success, if any at all. This is one of the problems. Reduction's really, really, really hard. It's really hard. Yes, exactly, Unreal Brian. I already solved it with an emote. So, arguably, these failures are not a coincidence. Several philosophers have argued convincingly, in the author's view, that normative properties are in principle irreducible to non-normative ones. Moreover, a potentially fatal weakness has been identified in the reductionist project as such. This project presupposes two claims: that philosophy should only, or at least mainly, utilize scientific methods, and that the search for reductions is one of the most important components of scientific methodology. Ivanio says this is where neural networks come in. Okay, so yeah, you can try to build up the neurology. It's doable, I know, but the reductionism is harder than you realize at the theoretical level. It doesn't always make sense to say what you're doing is reduction. Is part of the problem. But here the author is arguing for normative things, which is things that like how things should be. So there's nothing in the brain that says how the world should be. It's just, when you're doing physics, you're describing the world. You're not saying how anything should be. Okay. So the author says, however, if the former assumption is, as we will see shortly, controversial, the second is arguably false, and that's that you should be searching for reductions. Okay, so we'll see why. It is not true, that scientists look for reductions as one of their privileged goals, and above all, it is not true that in science there are many examples of successful reductions. This is what I mean, it's hard. It doesn't actually work most of the time. It's not true that science has successful reductions. Among the many failed attempts at reducing scientific theories to more fundamental ones, we can mention those of thermodynamics, statistical mechanics to quantum mechanics, of chemistry to quantum mechanics, of classical mechanics to quantum mechanics, of molecular biology to classical genetics. Along the same lines, Weisberg et al. Claim that there is an anti-reductionist consensus in the philosophy of chemistry, and the alleged reduction of chemistry to microphysics has always been one of the favorite examples offered by the reductionists to advertise their view. This is one of the things, we just haven't got it figured out yet. Maybe in the future, but not yet. We cannot actually reduce chemistry to to quantum physics. Also, there are good reasons to think that even the much advertised reduction of thermodynamic laws to statistical mechanics does not really succeed. And you can see right here, this is a 1991 article that they're referencing. This has been known a long time that it actually doesn't really make sense what people are saying. And this was pointed out a long time ago. So 1991 is full on 32 years at this point. And it was written prior to 1991. So it's older, like the concept that you can't even reduce thermodynamics to statistical mechanics. Now, I haven't checked the references. Does this still make sense? But this is a 1991 article that they just published now that they're referencing that it doesn't always make sense. So it's new to you. You see, this is what I mean. This is maybe this is really stupid philosophers being stupid. Maybe. But this is still this is what the philosophers think. they may be wrong here. Like the physicists and the physicists aligned peoples may just be right. But like the philosophers are pointing out that like stuff doesn't always make sense. And I remember this, like I was taught this stuff. I graduated high school in 1991. I don't appreciate you pointing out how long ago that was. Believe me, I was alive. I remember 1991. I ain't that young. So yeah. 32 years ago. Yeah, it's not great. Thus, other scientific naturalists have explored alternative strategy, that of eliminativism, according to which the phenomena of the ordinary view of the world are constitutively intractable by the natural sciences and, consequently, should be eliminated from our ontology. As in past eras, it happened with the phlogiston and the epicycles of Ptolemaic astronomy. Yeah, so you eliminate items of folk psychology. So basically, we're getting rid of all the garbage. Eventually, we'll just get rid of all the garbage and we'll be left with the physics. So we're not reducing it, but what we're doing is knocking out all the dumb ideas as we go along, and then we'll just be left to, protons and whatnot. So that's what it is. So we're eliminating folk psychology. We're eliminating free will eventually. Like, we'll figure out what it is, and we can eliminate this stuff. And moral fictionalism, yeah, like if you think all that morals mean are fictions that make us feel better, then we can just eliminate them because it's just how we feel. It's not actually anything in the world. And we can feel stuff without it actually having any normative force saying this is the way we should be feeling. It just is how we are feeling. Protons, neutrons, and morons. That there's some like deep thing to that. Unreal Brian. However, eliminativism is a very radical strategy since it leaves us without the capacity to conceptualize fundamental areas of our experience. In this light, arguments have been presented according to which this view is self-refuting, and accepting it immediately raises what Lynn Baker called the threat of cognitive suicide. Among the many philosophers that find eliminativism unacceptable, there are some scientific naturalists who also deny the feasibility of reductionism. In this light, they pursue a third strategy for addressing the placement problem, the so-called Mysterianism. Oh, I've heard this before. It's kind of fun. Cognitive suicide, I have been summoned. How you doing, Vipers? I hope you're well. Yeah. According to this view, advocated by Noam Chomsky, Colin McGinn, yeah, I heard Colin McGinn was doing this. Although, I think Colin McGinn got canceled. Am I right about that? And in several areas of philosophy by Nagel and Van Inwagen, because of our cognitive limitations, for us, the problem of placing, say, free will, moral properties, and consciousness in the scientific worldview will always remain a mystery. For the same reason that dogs, lacking the necessary conceptual resources, will always be unable to demonstrate the Pythagorean theorem. You got canceled? Yeah. Oh, you had a trip? I hope it went well. Yeah, so I forget what Colin McGinn did, but it was just normal bullshit. It wasn't like something super crazy, I don't think, just, abuse. Like some sort of like, harassment or whatever. I don't think he killed anybody. Most philosophers, however, are convinced that Mysterianism has a dogmatic attitude as long as it assumes that the problems we cannot solve today will remain unsolvable forever. Hey, Lumpy, how you been? How's Minecraft? Your stream crashed. Oh no. Yeah, because Ann said you were streaming. I didn't see you were streaming, and then I figured some like Minecraft. I hope your computer's okay, or is it just like a thing? Let's give Lumpy a little shout out, but otherwise doing fine. Let's give a shout out to Lumpy. Hey, Ann, welcome back. Yeah, anyone who doesn't know, Lumpy will be back. I have faith in Lumpy's ability to stream yet again. But yeah, the Lumpy is a Minecraft streamer, but he has good chats while Minecrafting, and he's making this lovely fantasy-themed Minecraft world and some architecture, so it's good times. We were just talking about moral factionalism in Lumpy's stream, but in less flattering terms. Not everyone has to like moral fictionalism. Yeah. So yeah, give Lumpy a follow if you haven't, and hang out there when he gets the stream back up. Yeah, fictionalism. Not normal. Oh, you're helping your mom. Okay, that's nice though. Helping your mom is a good thing. Yeah. So cool. Yeah, this is the thing about being Mysterian, like the Mysterianism. You're saying, look, there's things we just won't figure out, and that's okay. But like that doesn't mean they're non-physical. It just means they're inherently mysterious. But like that's kind of like one of those like, come on, like it's physical, but we can't find it. Like it's always just gonna be a little bit more mysterious than we can do it. It's like that's a little bit it seems a little bit unfair. Like saying like, okay, there's maybe things that are just beyond us, fine, but saying things we can talk about that are always beyond us, that seems weird. Yeah. Yeah, because like if you're saying that like you can't, you're not gonna be explain stuff that we already talk about, it's always gonna be inherently mysterious. It's like, well, why do you say that? Like, how do you know it's inherently mysterious? Who told you? Okay, so for this reason, it's tempting to read this view as a reductio of scientific naturalism in general. Mysterianism brings scientific naturalism to its extreme consequences by admitting that both reductionism and eliminativism are unsuccessful, and consequently, the only remaining strategy for that view is to see the most important phenomena of our lives as incomprehensible mysteries. However, in this regard, a quotation by the late Lynn Baker comes to mind. Quote, we should not lend faith to metaphysics that render ordinary but significant phenomena unintelligible. End quote. And once this very plausible opinion is accepted, why should we not conclude that scientific naturalism is a deeply unsatisfactory view and should be abandoned? I know, it's like you can't just declare things you don't understand as mysterious and be like, oh, well, that's it, throw up your hands. That's kind of just, accepting defeat without it's uncritically accepting defeat, which is silly. Let's see. Unreal Brian says, McGinn, quote, the student declined to share the messages with the Chronicle. However, her long-term boyfriend described some of the correspondence, including several passages that he said were sexually explicit. The boyfriend, along with two professors with whom the student has worked, described one message in which they say Mr. McGinn wrote that he had been thinking about the student while masturbating. Yeah, see, this is the problem. I mean, again, this is one of those... Sharing sexually explicit messages is not the worst thing in the world, but it's pretty terrible just the same. And you should definitely not be doing that to one of your students if you are their teacher. Yeah. Again, like I said, he didn't kill anybody, but harassing your own students is not good. So, okay. But yeah, this is the thing about Mysterianism. It's like it sounds cool, but really it's just begging the question. It's kind of what do I say? Dogmatic attitude. It's begging the question. You're saying, look, we're never going to find out, and it doesn't matter what we do, we're just not going to figure it out. It's like, well, that's kind of stupid too. You can't just say we're never going to find out anything or not going to find out more. Maybe some of the stuff is solvable, and just throwing up your hands and saying not going to happen is not good. It's kind of just ducking and running. It's a cop out. Yeah, like thought terminating cliches. Yeah, you can't duck out of the metaphysics. Just because it's hard or things that you don't understand it now doesn't mean when we come back in the future we might not know better. And the idea we're just going to declare stuff as unsolvable and inherently mysterious, it's lazy. Liberal naturalism and the reconciliation problem. One may ask what causes the deep difficulties that scientific naturalism faces. One possible answer comes from John Dupree, who maintains that all forms of scientific naturalism adopt a very questionable perspective that he labels the myth of monism. In fact, as hinted above, the monistic attitude of scientific naturalism has both an ontological and an epistemological face. The natural sciences, if not physics alone, are our only genuine source of knowledge. Therefore, they have the last word on all ontological questions. In the background of this view is the thesis that the natural is nothing more than the stuff that in principle can be studied by the natural sciences. This is a radical change from some of the versions of naturalism that were developed in previous ages. In this regard, for example, about a century ago, John Dewey wrote, quote, mind and matter are different characters of natural events in which matter expresses their sequential order and mind the ordering of the things in their logical connections and dependencies. End quote. Dewey had a much broader view of nature than that of scientific naturalists today. For him, in addition to being the object of the natural sciences, nature expands to the normative components of the ordinary view of the world, and this implies a form of constitutive pluralism according to which there are different and mutually irreducible ways of understanding a reality that, in itself, is irreducibly varied. Okay, yeah, so like maybe you can look at the mind and say it's still naturalistic, but now we're looking at it in the mindy way, and then you look at it in the physicsy way later, but in some sense they're all interconnected and interrelated, so there's nothing over and above it, it's just sort of a matter of perspective. A clearly pluralist attitude such as Dewey's is central to the contemporary liberal naturalism. The latter view can be defined by the following three theses. Now, take a look. I don't know if you can see, but this is the author right here. So this is going to be what they have written about before. And so even up until last year. So this is one of the author's view. So they're going to be sympathetic here. Unreal Brian says a more worked out version of such heterogeneous ontology is Justice Buckler's Metaphysics of Natural Complexes. Okay, I don't know the work, but sounds good. Yeah, so this is the this pluralistic view, and broken down to three theses. 1. Some real entities are irreducible but not incompatible with the entities that are part of the domain of science-based ontology. Okay, so you can't reduce them, but they're still made up of science stuff. You think he studied under Dewey at Columbia. Oh, cool. Okay. 2. Some legitimate forms of understanding, for example, a priori reasoning, conceptual analysis, and introspection, are neither reducible to scientific understanding nor incompatible with it. Okay, so they're off in space somewhere. They're in some weird spot. They're not incompatible with science, but then they can't really reduce them either. And 3. There are issues with respect to which philosophy is not continuous with science in terms of content, method, and purpose, although it should not be at odds with it. That's fine. Like, I don't care about this one. This one's not a big deal. Like, there doesn't have to be one method by which we, investigate the world. Like, studying fundamental physics is one thing, and that's fine. But, like, if you're going to go do sociology, that's fine too, but it's not got the same methods as physics. But no one thinks that, like, sociology can't be reduced down to, the physics of people running around. Like, that's not really a question. Like, if you're going to have the reductionist worldview, but, like, again, you're not going to be doing the physics to do the sociology. Doesn't make sense. But, like, the fact that there's different methodologies in different areas of the world, that's not a big deal. Like, that's not that does not preclude any sort of, scientific basis. Yeah, you just explain the why of sociology. Well, try. Okay. Considering these three theses, evidently liberal naturalism, as opposed to scientific naturalism, does not face the placement problem. There is nothing to be placed in the world studied by the natural sciences. That is nothing to be legitimized, not free will, not consciousness, nor intentionality, nor morality, because the characteristics of the ordinary worldview do not need any legitimization. I'm a real philosopher. Someone asked me to justify Chicago pizza as better than New York pizza a few streams ago, and then they were good enough to clip it and give it to Agni. So yeah, I am willing to, entertain other points of view, which, as Russell said, is the mark of, philosophers being able to hold more than one viewpoint. No, mark of maturity, being able to hold more different viewpoints in your head at the same time. So I can hold different viewpoints. I try. It's an apodeictic truth, yeah. Viper said, I'm reminded of the quote by Dallas Banning McCown, the invisible and the non-existent look very much alike. DCI, no, not bitter at all. My grandma told me I can't be bitter. I think she knew that I was kind of bitter at times. She was like, that's not a good look. Like, don't be bitter. So yeah. Now, Vipers, that's a good point. Like, are we just doing a lot of hand waving here and saying, look, we're saying, like, we're describing things in different ways, but is it really meaning anything? Yeah. And that's a good question. Like, what have they actually done here? You're trying to get Agni to argue for New York pizza? I mean, he's a big man, but I don't think he has the point redeem that I do, and I don't know if he'd do that. Philosophical jazz hands. All of philosophy is hand waving in some sense. In the last, you know, in the last analysis, it's always one of the things you have to do is just say look, like look. If someone is not, you can bring a person like you can. Like bring a person philosophy, but you can't make them look. Like you bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You can bring an idea, a proof to people, but you can't make them look. And so, like in the end, all philosophy, it's like that's what QED means. Is like what was meant to be demonstrated. It's just a look here. This is what we said we were gonna do. In the end, it's all just like, yeah, you have to look. Like that's all we can do is like, look. Cheese on toast with a bit of Worcestershire sauce is greater than U.S. pizza. Why would you say that? I don't think that's true. I mean, why would like high quality cheese and like tomato sauce on like a really good crust be better than like just Worcestershire sauce? But okay. Like I just have to disagree. Also, Detroit pizza for the win. I mean, I've never had Detroit pizza, so it's possible that Detroit pizza is something special. I don't know because like most people don't say that. But you're of course entitled to your opinion. There is no accounting for taste. Okay, so we've got the question from Vipers like if you're just basically making up stuff and you're saying, "Oh, it's all just different ways of looking at the world." Have you really done anything or are you just hand waving here? It's because U.S. good quality cheese is just cheese everywhere else. Yes, but we do have good quality. We have like just cheese, like on our pizza. So our good cheese is like good cheese. Like it's at least good enough cheese in the rest of the world, which is fine. But then we also have good quality sauce and good quality crust. So that's hard to replicate is the crust. That's one of the things New Yorkers pride ourselves on is our good quality thin crust. You're still amazed at the idea of canned cheese. It's not really cheese. That's some sort of like fake topping, cheese like topping. I mean, yes, it's called cheese because like kind of like cheese, but like it's a processed cheese topping. It's like it's not actually like yeah, this is one of those they call it cheese. They probably should call it something else, but it's good marketing. Okay, so yeah. Unreal Brian says, written by a good friend when he was visiting. My purple shirt is featured if you want to see or read about Detroit pizza. Okay, let's save the link at least, and we'll put it up here, and maybe we can, review Detroit pizza. So it's like loading. Okay, so we've got Brass Rail Pizza Bar. Okay, cool. And so, like, oh, is this you're saying in this purple right here? Your purple shirt? I have to say that does look like a appetizing square pizza right there. So, yeah. So, yeah, there's someone in a purple shirt. All right. Good cheese is illegal in the U.S.? That's not true. You do not get arrested for having good cheese. I mean, come on. Can't even get a Camembert? Well, okay, so maybe you're saying that you can't get, what's it called? Everything here is pasteurized, and that's fair. So, yeah, it is illegal in that case. Yeah, so that is a problem. You can't get non-pasteurized stuff because, nanny state. That'd be kind of a fun thing. Rail against the forced pasteurization of cheese and be like, the nanny state is coming after us. We have to undo this. And, all the crazy people in this country would be like, yeah, nanny state. And then they'd all get sick. Yeah. Hashtag freedom. Oh, man. Imagine like that actually became a political point, like the pasteurization of cheese and milk in this country. I wouldn't even be surprised at this. Like, that it could happen nowadays. All right. Anyway, so we're arguing at the moment about, yeah, well, if you know where, of course you can buy raw milk if you went to like a farm or something, but yeah. If only the French knew what they helped you a lot with would become. Yeah, I mean, but then again, pissing off the English always seems like a good idea anyway. So, I mean, yeah, we're talking about like, all right, so now we're just talking about like, you're allowed to have a variety of viewpoints on the world, but you're not actually worried about reducing them. You're just saying it's all naturalistic, but you're allowed to think about whatever you want. Okay. So that said, liberal naturalism encounters a different problem, which can be called reconciliation problem. This concerns the relationship between the phenomena of the ordinary view of the world and those of the scientific view, as well as the way of evaluating and solving the conflicts that frequently occur between these two views. Let us consider the case of moral properties. What is the relation between human beings when they are judged through normative statements? You must do this. One shouldn't lie. I was wrong to make that choice. Compared to cases where they are described in biological terms. Henri O'Brien says, I'm American of mostly French-Canadian heritage, so I have a lot of conflicts here. Well, that's fair. In general, based on McDowell's distinction, the question to ask is, what is the relationship between the space of reasons and the space of natural laws? That's an interesting question. Proponents of liberal naturalism have developed various answers to this question, but there are three main ones. The first, which has Kant's The Pragmatists and Wittgenstein's philosophies as a source of inspiration, postulate a categorical distinction between the ordinary and the scientific view of the world, such that they are totally heterogeneous. According to this conception, human beings can be looked at from two different perspectives based on completely different conceptual apparatuses that identify real but unrelated features of the world. The advantage of this position is that the ordinary view and the scientific view can be understood according to their own criteria without questioning their relationship. Hence, the reconciliation problem does not even arise. The disadvantage, however, is that the gap between the conceptual apparatuses of these views becomes unbridgeable, and the entities to which they respectively appeal seem to belong to parallel dimensions. Therefore, the main challenge for the proponents of this view is to show that the very plausible idea that the same ordinary view and the scientific view refer to the same world does not entirely vanish. Yeah, this is the problem. If you start saying, oh yeah, you can have whatever way you want to describe the world, then how do all these things talk about the same world? You have no way of actually connecting them up. You need bridge principles, as they call them here. Like they say, it's unbridgeable. You need to say, well, when I'm talking about this stuff in chemistry, it actually is relating to this stuff in physics, and when I'm talking stuff in biology, it relates to chemistry. But if you don't do that, you can't actually say, well, this is related to this, is related to this. Then you got problems. But then again, you fall into the other one, then how do you actually, do the reduction, which is the old problem from above here, like this stuff up here. It's like, how does it actually reduce? And this one, again, it has the exact same problem, but look at how do you actually bridge, not reduce. Okay, the liberal naturalist's second response to the reconciliation problem appeals to emergentism, the view according to which every organic complex is characterized by emergent properties. These properties are supposed to depend on the occurrence of specific physical and chemical conditions, but cannot be predicted or explained by the properties of the parts that constitute the organic complex. In short, as the worn-out slogan goes, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. That is, the characteristics of the higher ontological level are unpredictable and inexplicable from the characteristics of the lower levels, even though the former depends on the latter for their existence. In this way, the problem of the relationship between the two worldviews, that is, the placement problem, is solved. While the scientific view is concerned with the more fundamental properties, the ordinary view is concerned with the higher level emergent properties. Also in this case, however, there is a relevant conceptual difficulty, in virtue of which many philosophers believe that the notion of emergence is obscure and does not explain what needs to be explained yet. Emergence is one of these hand-wavy things. So you got all the stuff, then all of a sudden, emergence, you got new stuff when you put it all together that doesn't reduce down to the low-level stuff. Yeah, so author says this is because once one has assumed this perspective, it remains completely impenetrable why in nature there are leaps that make it impossible to account for the properties of higher-level entities in terms of the lower-level entities that constitute them. Yeah, so it's like, how do you get like a thinking thing from non-thinking matter? Like, how do you do it? somehow that thinking stuff is like different from its low level stuff, but it emerged out of it, so it was created from it. But this is just a black box that somehow you've got the low level stuff and a black box emergent to the high level, whatever it is that we do in our head. The meat thinks, exactly. Methinks the meat thinks. To put it another way, emergentism merely points to a fundamental phenomenon of nature, that of emergence, but without explaining at all why that phenomenon exists and, in essence, what its nature is. To this criticism, emergentists respond by stating that the emergence of certain features over others is a brute phenomenon, that is, it is inexplicable. Yeah, see, this is the hand wave. It happens, but you can't ask about it. This response, however, appears unsatisfactory because it merely acknowledges the existence of the phenomena rather than illuminating it. Yeah. How do we get salt from sodium and chlorine? Woo, magic. Yes. This is exactly the problem. You put it together and all of a sudden it's not the same thing, and then you're not allowed to ask about it, which seems very weird. It's like the Mysterianism from before. All of a sudden, salt, you're like, where'd salt come from? No one knows. Where'd the tides come from? No one knows. It doesn't make sense. Unreal Brian says possibly everyone knows this. If not, you should do a read on it in one of the streams. What is this? Thinking Meat. Let's take a look at this link from Unreal. And of course, Anne comes in with the real smarts. Aliens. What do we got here? Radio play. I don't know what this is. Yeah, we can maybe save it for like the warm up at the start of next stream or something. Or maybe the end of this one, whatever. What am I looking at? Here we go. It's a very short story by Terry Bisson with serious philosophical implications. Okay, fun. Fun. But it's aliens. We already got the answer. Anne helped us out. Okay, so the third answer that liberal naturalism can offer to the reconciliation problem is based on the notion of global supervenience. Anytime someone says supervenience, I die a little. I just cringe. I don't like supervenience. This is a weaker ontological dependence relation than the reduction relation, which is advocated by many scientific naturalists. Evolve yourself. How are we doing, Agni? How's it going? Anyone who doesn't know, let's give Agni a quick shout out here. Shout out. Evolve yourself. Agni James is a streamer here on twitch.tv/evolve yourself TV. He streams mostly meditation, chakra balancing, and other things like holistic sort of like content, which is really cool. But he's also a philosopher and he chess instructor, so you can get like chess content sometimes on stream. He reads Grimm fairy tales. Everyone go give Evolve Yourself a follow if you have not. Should also give Anne a follow out in a few minutes if we remember. But yeah, I'm doing okay. We were talking about pizza. We actually got a link shared in by I think DCI about a review of Chicago pizza. So not Chicago, sorry, Detroit pizza. Excuse me. I apologize on the confusion there. So this is the Brass Rail pizza joint here, which we may one day read the food review. So we've been talking about pizzas also. He smashed some chess the other night. Was that you? Yeah. It was Unreal Brian. I apologize. Streaming, streamer brain is not a joke. You may hear other people talk about it. It's like you lose things very quickly. I apologize. I know that Unreal Brian has been posting links, but somehow DCI came out of the mouth. Yeah. Okay, so we're talking about supervenience, which is a terrible concept. But yeah, so Agni, we're talking about a little bit of philosophical naturalism and the problems with it. The first problem we went over with was the basic reductionism, and then this is an alternative to the sort of the hard science and saying, hey, look, we can look at the world in any which ways, and you don't need to explain reductionism. We're just assuming naturalism. And the problem here is, of course, that if you can explain it in any which way, how do you actually know that these things all match up? So that's what's going on. It's okay. I can blame whoever I want for crap, Unreal Brian. Never stopped me before. Never stopped anyone else really either. So yeah, we're talking about the view now where you can have different viewpoints on things and they're all good. But of course, how do you actually relate the different viewpoints together then if there's nothing in common? And so they're talking about global supervenience. Maybe there's a way to use supervenience to do this. All right, so global supervenience is a weaker ontological dependence relation than the reduction relation, which is advocated by many scientific naturalists. In its basic version, global supervenience is a covariance relation whereby if two worlds are identical in some of their subvenient features, that's the physical stuff underneath, they are also identical in terms of their supervenient features, that is the ordinary view. So like if two minds are in the exact same physical state, they'll be thinking the same ideas, basically. Because the thoughts are completely dependent on the physical substrate. And so if there's two different people, but they're in the exact same physical mental state, then they'll have the exact same thoughts. Okay. Oh, hey! For example, if two subjects differ in terms of their mental characteristics, then they must also differ in terms of their physical characteristics of their two respective worlds in the subject's head or in the external environment with which they causally interact. Instead, a difference in physical characteristics need not correspond to a difference in mental characteristics. Let's consider an example. The mental problem of believing that 5 plus 7 is 12 and the mental property of believing that the table in front of me is elegant necessarily correspond to two different physical configurations. Isn't that why stoners understand each other? Yes. Moreover, each of these two mental properties can in turn correspond to different physical configurations. Finally, two identical physical characteristics necessarily correspond to the same mental property. In short, global supervenience is a many-to-one relation. Different subvenient characteristics, those of the low level, which is represented by the whole physical world, may correspond to the same supervenient characteristics, those of the mental level, while different supervenient characteristics will always correspond to different subvenient characteristics. Yeah, so we can have the same idea without having the same brain, but if we did have the same brain, then we would necessarily have the same idea. Same thoughts. Identical physical worlds will therefore also be identical in terms of their supervenient features. And let me explain to you why I hate supervenience. This paragraph sucked. I hate explaining this shit because it always sounds terrible. They were saying subvenient, supervenient, every fucking time. It's just a terrible way of going about everything. Hey, congratulations on your bong. By appealing to global supervenience, the ontological nexus between different levels of features is guaranteed. Circumvenient? I don't think I said that. Did I say that? All right. Circumvent or convenient, subvenient, yes, subvenient characteristics. Ugh, terrible. Okay, good. Well, I'm already starting to lose my head. I'm just tired today, so it's like, yeah, I'm not surprised if I start screwing stuff up. By appealing to global supervenience, the ontological nexus between different levels of features is guaranteed. However, such nexus does not imply that higher properties are reducible to lower ones. Indeed, there is no way to determine once and for all the set of physical features to which a mental feature corresponds because that set is open-ended. There can always be, for example, a new physical configuration underlying the mental property of believing that 5 plus 7 equals to 12. In this regard, one may note that since the subvenient bases of higher level phenomena are potentially represented by the entire physical world, appealing to the notion of emergence, which requires that the complexity of the internal organization of the specific components of the whole to be so complex as to produce an ontological leap, does not carry any explanatory value. Yeah, you can't do it. Have a good night, Lumpy. I hope your computer recovers and you can get back to the crafting of minds. Against this view, scientific naturalists object that, from an ontological point of view, global supervenience is too weak a notion because it fails to account for the unity of the world. This objection, however, does not bother liberal naturalists at all, because it is nothing more than a reformulation of the thesis that they emphatically reject, namely that there is an ontological hierarchy that runs from the bottom to the top of reality, and everything must be integrally traced back to the lower levels. At any rate, for a liberal naturalist, the lower levels are necessary for the existence of the higher levels, and any change in the higher levels presupposes a difference in the lower levels, but this by no means that the lower levels exhaust the ontological value of the higher levels. Yeah, this Horrible stuff. Unreal Brian says, a sidetrack but also helpful in philosophical pedagogy. In my day job, which deals with a lot of medical stuff, I try to train new workers to know and break apart Latin roots to better understand the jargon. Yeah, if you can have a place where you can actually use that, that's always good. Have a great night, Ivan. Thanks for being here. And yeah, I was hoping we'd find a good topic in terms of science. I was feeling a little sciencey today. So this is interesting. But like, yeah, have a great night. And thanks again for the raid. I appreciate it. Yeah, people dropping off at 11 o'clock. It happens. I wonder if I get it. Yeah, I think we do get some Australians sometimes. So I was like, it's probably wake up time for some Australians. Yeah, take care, jet lag person. Yeah, absolutely. Get some good rest, Ivan. Okay. Moreover, as convincingly argued by Kovacs, there are two ways of interpreting the term explanatory. Regarding the charge that supervenes is not an explanatory relation. It isn't really. In a restrictive interpretation of the term, supervenes is indeed unexplanatory, but this is also true for other relations that are commonly accepted in philosophy, such as causation, grounding, and realization. In a wider interpretation of explanatory, one sees no reason to deny that supervenes is explanatory. I mean, yeah, in some sense, you're just saying that the underlying stuff is responsible for the overlying stuff, like the concepts. But like, okay, it's very weak explanation in that case. Some proponents of liberal naturalism, those who see the ordinary and the scientific worldviews as categorically different, refuse to appeal to supervenes for several reasons. First, in their view, this appeal would be a dangerous concession to scientific naturalism. As John McDowell has noted, however, even non-naturalists such as Moore can resort to supervenes in accounting for the relationship between values and non-normative facts. Thus, this objection misses its target. Appealing to someone from like 100 years ago is a little weak because our notion of science and Moore's notion of science may not have been exactly the same. Still, you can appeal to G. Moore if you want to, but like that's the thing. You can say like, there's still an underlying physical world, and that's all you're saying here with supervenience. That has to correspond to whatever is going on in our head. Very weak though. Another objection comes from John Dupree, who argued that the supervenience thesis is empirically vacuous. That objection, however, is valid only if one agrees with Dupree's very strong empiricist assumption that all beliefs must be based on empirical facts. Finally, really? I don't know. I'd have to see that argument. Because I don't really know what you're saying when you say that like there's a physical world. It sounds like, okay, you're making a claim that all of the stuff that happens in your head, there has to be some sort of change in the physical world. But the exact relationship of supervenience might be the wrong way. Like maybe your mind stuff is causing the change in the physical reality or something. Like that would be a very strange view, but like I'm not entirely sure that like the claim that any change in the mind has to have a corresponding change in like your physical brain, like that's very, very loose. Very loose. Okay. Finally, other liberal naturalists argue that the supervenience view cannot solve the reconciliation problem because the attempt to reevaluate facts to non-evaluated facts is based on a categorical error. However, McDowell and Putnam note, if one appeals to the notion of global supervenience in the right way, one will notice that it is not philosophically problematic. Given an action that we consider despicable and another that is exactly similar in all non-evaluative respects, the second action must be equally despicable. Okay. And this statement, McDowell convincingly argues, is a harmless statement. I'm not sure what this means right here. How do you actually link stuff up with supervenience other than just hand waving, say, oh, it all supervenes? Like there has to be something underneath that connects it. I'm not entirely sure how this isn't just dogmatically insisting that the physical world is exactly as we think it needs to be. Like I'm not like this just is getting more and more dogmatic. The more and more you're saying, oh, there must be a physical reality that does all this stuff. Well, okay, but then you're just defining physical reality as the thing that does the stuff. You're not explaining anything. So I'm not sure what actually is happening here. Like, what is really being explained? It's too weak to do what we wanted to do if we're defining physical reality as the thing that, just ties everything together. Viper says, I thought the greatest philosopher to ever grace a stage solved this in 1985. Quote, because we are living in a material world and I'm a material girl. Correct. I mean, she was the mother of God, wasn't she? The Madonna. Okay. Scientific naturalists can mount another attack against liberal naturalists by arguing that their naturalist constraint arguing that their naturalist constraint, that is, one cannot accept views or entities that are incompatible with the scientific worldview, is too vague for granting the coveted naturalistic credentials. Maybe that's what I was saying here. This whole thing is very vague. To give an example, from a logical point of view, both ontological dualism a la Descartes and creationism, two conceptions that no one today would call naturalistic, are in fact logically compatible with the scientific worldview. If they were true, no scientific law would be violated. However, this objection is not well grounded. Okay, so this is different from what I was saying. I was saying that, you get what you want with supervenience, but that's because you're defining yourself to have the right sort of thing. Like akin to the concept of, that wasn't a statement of belief in the super now. Akin to the concept of, that wasn't a statement of belief in the supernatural. What? Not sure. So it's like you're not actually sure what this argument here is. It's too vague to say things are naturalistic. Oh, like a prayer. Oh, okay. Okay then. Okay, so let's see. The notion of compatibility between philosophy and science, to which liberal naturalism appeals, should not be understood in a strictly logical sense, but in a broader one. The point is not only that we should not accept philosophical conceptions that openly contradict our best scientific theories, but also that we should not accept conceptions that expand our ontology into areas that are already well accounted for by the explanations and entities postulated by science alone. The theory of intelligent design, according to which biological evolution is guided by higher intelligence, is a very good example in this regard. Logically, this theory is compatible with neo-Darwinian theory of evolution, whose alleged shortcomings it would, according to its proponents, fill. However, if the first part of the statement is correct, the second part is not. To explain biological evolution, there is no need to postulate the role of a superior intelligence because the process of natural selection covered by Darwin, together with genetic mechanisms, has no dramatic shortcomings and actually offers an excellent account of the evolution of species, a thesis, by the way, that is also shared by many religious scientists. Therefore, even liberal naturalists, like radical naturalists, can easily reject intelligent design with its anti-naturalistic ontological implications. An important difference between scientific and liberal naturalists concerns what one should do when there is a conflict between philosophy and science. Scientific naturalists do not have doubts that philosophy should always let science go ahead. Hugh Price, for example, writes that to be a philosophical naturalist is to believe that philosophy is not simply a different enterprise from science, and that philosophy properly defers to science where the concerns of the two disciplines coincide. This is not a view that liberal naturalists may share. In many cases, philosophical doubts and questions have been raised regarding scientific theories, hypotheses, and experimental evidence, which could not be answered by merely appealing to scientific concepts and methods because they involve philosophical categories. One sec. Yeah. Okay, so as Dan Dennett once wrote once, there is no such thing as a philosophy-free science, and there is only science whose philosophical baggage is taken on board without examination. Philosophical questions and doubts are not philosophical in character because only professional philosophers raise them. In fact, scientists can raise them as well, and often do, and this happens in other fields as well, of course. There are many examples of philosophical questions raised both by philosophers and scientists. How much longer of this have I got? Oh boy, it's actually kind of long. Yeah, sad that Ivan left. He's a Dennett stan. I know. I was like, let's go read something like philosophical naturalism. You'd probably be happy. Well, he can catch a VOD if he wants. But like, this is the thing. It's like, yeah, there's if you're looking at this view where you can just take philosophy at face value and say, hey, look, everything we're doing is going to be at least based in like physicalism. And if you don't actually have to make the reductionist claim where you're getting from the thoughts all the way down to the physics, which is what the supervenience claim does. It just says that there has to be some change between them when things change, but you don't actually have to do the reduction. Then you're okay. In some sense, it's just like you're hand waving and saying you're still a physicalist, but you don't have to explain anything about how it works. Damn, they really underestimate scientists' capacities, right? I don't know, because there are some really hard problems about like what can actually get done in science. And so solving the really hard ones, it's like, there are fewer and fewer of them, but like, again, the problems that remain are harder and harder. So it's like, I'm not so, I'm on the philosophy side of things. And so it's like, I'm looking at the problems. I'm not looking at the solutions scientists come up with. And so it's like, yeah, maybe I am discounting the science, but then again, I know all the problems, and so it doesn't look like they're getting solved anytime soon. So it's like, you just gotta like leave the scientists like to do what they can do, and then more and more when you can, get rid of like bad philosophical baggage, you do. But like, this is the thing: there's only science whose philosophical baggage is taken on board without examination. That's right. Like, there is no it's just people who decided that philosophy is okay. Like, that's what it is. Okay. Alright, so the debate on the nature of light was deeply permeated by philosophical ideas regarding the possibility of the vacuum and atoms. For example, Einstein's reaction against quantum mechanics was largely due to his metaphysical preference for determinism over indeterminism, and it was because of the metaphysical presupposition that from a geometrical point of view of the world, is as simple as possible. Simplicity is the seal of truth was a famous medieval adage that Galileo accepted the Copernican system. And it was for the same metaphysical reason, the preference of geometric simplicity over complexity, that he wrongly refused the review regarding the elliptical nature of planetary orbits, which had been discovered by his friend Kepler. Other examples of the relevance of philosophical questions or doubts for the sciences are the contemporary discussions on the interpretation of quantum mechanics or on how scientifically legitimate string theory is, considering that it has no empirical applications. Finally, another interesting case is offered by the application of cognitive neuroscience to the study of agency, consciousness, freedom, and moral responsibility. In discussing all of these issues, the role of philosophy is central, in particular because a sound conceptual analysis is indispensable for understanding the issues at stake and the findings of neuroscience can afford for their clarification. Nerds have big egos and they're just like any of us. Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is one of the things about academia. The fights are so vicious because the stakes are so small. This is all we have. Like, we don't have other things. You don't get like fancy, like cool, like cars or whatever. All you have is your opinions. And so people fight to the death over them. So that's all they have is their ego and their like opinion and be like, I'm right. And someone on the internet is wrong. I'm going to prove them wrong because I'm right. Yeah, I'd like some Met Gala invitations. That'd be fun. Unlike scientific naturalists, moreover, liberal naturalists believe that the traditional philosophical method may be legitimate even when they are irreducible to the methods of the natural sciences, as long as they are not incompatible with them in the broad sense of compatibility discussed before. Yeah, so you can have everything you want according to this person's view, the liberal naturalism, as long as you say, but it supervenes on the physical, which just means there's some way that everything comes down to the physical. Seems dogmatic to me, but like that's what the view is. All these people who think they know everything are really an annoyance to those of us who do. Exactly, Unreal Brian. What do we got here from Vipers? Oh my God. People from Chicago trying to convince you 3 pounds of cheese and raw dough is pizza, and you're just like, get away from me, bro. Yes. Okay. So thus for the liberal naturalist, that's the person who just says, hey, let 1,000 opinions bloom as long as you say it reduces down, it supervenes on the physical. You like how people is in quotation marks? Yeah, that's funny. It's like, yeah. People from Chicago. All right, so for the liberal naturalist, mystic intuition, being incompatible with the scientific worldview in the broad sense of compatibility, is not epistemologically legitimate, while first-person insights, conceptual analysis, and the transcendental method are. Okay, here's the problem. Who gets to say what mystical intuition is? If you're defining everything that isn't the mystical as what you are saying is okay, is getting more and more ad hoc. It's like you're starting to get just to define yourself into like always being right. And so this is my problem with these sorts of theories, is that, okay, we're defining mystical as everything not this, and so everything's a negative definition. Well, what is happening is not mystical by definition. That's what the problem is here. You can't actually tell me how supervenience works. It's just kind of like, okay, it happens, because you're not doing the reductionist thing, but then you're saying it's just not mystical. And you're like, well, why is the mystic not supervening on the physical too? Or is there something interacting there? Can't say that, but it's just by definition. Okay, so all the non-mystical things, the latter methods are essential to the philosophical enterprise and characterize it as an autonomous domain. In this light, if the famous Heideggerian dictum that science does not think is to be rejected as misguided and ideological, oh God, Ivan would be so happy. Heideggerian is to be rejected as misguided and ideological. So is the attitude of scientific naturalists, according to which, in essence, only science thinks, with the corollary that philosophy can think only insofar as it imitates science. That said, we can return to the issue of the relationship between science and philosophy when they come into conflict with respect to some issue. Yeah, see, this is the let 1,000 flowers bloom, and only when like the flowers disagree with each other, like there's some overlap, does it matter. But other than that, because like everyone have at it. According to liberal naturalists, then, science does not necessarily have the last word, although this is often the case. Indeed, there are cases where philosophy can clarify some aspects of scientific inquiry and sometimes even help resolve some controversies between scientists. Conversely, there are also cases where science can contribute to philosophical discussions. As evidence of this, one may think of cases in which it is the scientists themselves who reflect with philosophical tools. This has happened in the past with discussions of infinitesimal calculus and set theory, and more recently as seen with debates on interpretation of quantum mechanics or string theory, or even with investigations on the neurophysiological basis of mental phenomena. In these fields, philosophical reflection and scientific inquiry can, and in some cases must, contribute to each other. As we've seen, liberal naturalism has the conceptual tools to reject supernaturalistic intrusions into the natural world. However, scientific naturalists could rephrase their critique, saying that liberal naturalism is still too inclusive from an epistemological point of view, insofar as it assumes that the natural sciences cannot explain all reality. The reason for this criticism is that liberal naturalism would have no way of countering conceptions that are clearly irreconcilable with naturalism, such as radical cultural relativism and postmodernism, that is, conceptions that substantially devalue the status of natural science, going so far as to proclaim the lack of objectivity of its theories. However, not even this accusation is well grounded, since according to liberal naturalism, reality limits the legitimacy of our legitimate interpretations insofar as it determines the truth conditions of the statements we make based on our various cognitive sources. This is begging the question right here. I mean, it's saying this accusation is not well grounded because it self-regulates. That's nice, but you can't guarantee that from within the system. You'd need something outside of it. So this is part of the problem with what I was saying earlier, that you're sort of defining yourself out of all the problems. You're defining all the things that are bad as not following in, getting caught here. But right here, they basically beg the question pretty clearly. Begging the question is assuming the answer you want, Pink Lady. So if I say the Christian God is God, and I know that because I read the Bible where the Christian God tells me that the Christian God is God, that is begging the question because you've assumed what you were meant to prove. You can't appeal to the same thing you mean to prove by appealing to that thing. The traditional Latin of begging the question is called petitio principii, which means small first. You have to ask the small question first, not the big one. The big question is, what is God? But the problem is, if you just ask that and you say, well, God is the God that it says so in the book, then you're asking the big question. You have to ask, the small question first. You have to ask, like, how do you know what kind of God, blah, blah, blah. And in this case, you have to say, well, what's the right view of science? You can't just say it's not well grounded because reality, according to this person, limits the legitimacy. But their definition of reality is, again, what they are defining it as. So reality limits the legitimacy of our legitimate interpretations, but the reality is as they already are defining it according to their own definition. So they've begged the question by using the term itself in the way they're defining reality. Yeah. So if you have any questions, Pink Lady, let me know. But it's basically, it's a way of describing a circular argument. And why is it bad? Circular argument's not necessarily bad. It means that you're not explaining what you want me to explain because you've assumed the answer you already wanted, and then you're using the answer you assumed to argue for the same answer. And so you're not learning anything. You're not actually postulating anything. Okay. And so right here, but like, this is what happens to everybody. This is not this person's fault. It's, this is exactly what everyone does in philosophy when they get to the end of what they can argue for, is they beg the question. Yeah. But it's not easy to spot. Not easy to spot at all. Like, and especially if you're in this area, you're going to just see this as like, well, of course reality limits the sorts of things we can like argue for. Like, that's obvious, but you don't realize that you've already assumed the answer. Hey, Cinesemiotics, how you been? Welcome in. Yeah, we're just getting to the end of this. We've got 1.5 columns to go still. But we're just talking about what is modern philosophical naturalism at the moment. So, yeah. So, author continues. It is obvious that all our judgments about the world are fallible and always will be. See, I don't even buy that. However, this does not mean that there are no objective canons of truth, as instead cultural relativism, postmodernism, and similar views claim. Pink Lady says, examples of this fallacy are always obvious, but in the real world, not so much. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. This is extremely hard to pick out. I know what I'm looking for. And so, as soon as this paragraph got so wordy with reality limits the legitimacy of our legitimate interpretations, I'm like, bing, 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 bing. It's going to be right here. It's obvious. But, it's just because this is what happens all the time. But you have to be on the lookout for it. And I know what I'm looking for. Yeah. One of the things, Cinesemiotics, it wasn't me last time when you gave bits and the alert went off. Twitch was broken because Tindarios did subscribe and it didn't show up anywhere until after my stream was over. So I was like, that wasn't my fault. That wasn't my fault. My programming wasn't broken that time. So yeah, I wanted to say that. It's like, it wasn't me, I swear. It wasn't my shit programming. Still busted. That doesn't mean it's not busted now, though. I have to reload it manually, every 20 minutes or something. I'm sorry, but thank you for the sub. So it's like, yeah, why? It says it's working. It says it. It's like I literally have to be like, Yeah, I want to play the stupid video though. There we go. 28 months. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna reload it. So there we go. Reloading. Can't get a relationship to last that long. Well, that's why we've this is what the parasocial thing is. Sort of works kind of well. I got these parasocial relationships too. They've been going for years now, since the beginning of the pandemic, basically. Yeah. Yep. Well, that's how it goes, Pink Lady. It's like everyone has a lot of experience in different areas, and like you can tell sometimes when things are going wrong in like your area. Like this is just, it feels bad. You can tell. So, yeah, evolve yourself. Cinesemiotics. Yeah, that's right. It is intense. Cinesemiotics has been around. Basically, you can see the first icon next to the name for a long time. And like I didn't even have affiliate for a while. I was streaming for a good while without affiliate because you know what? Philosophy content is not like the most popular thing on Twitch. It takes a while to find people and stuff. And so I was getting more views to my Minesweeper content. Like if I did stream more Minesweeper, I'd get Minesweeper people, and like there's overlap with the Tetris community. And that's really what did it, was I was getting some Tetris overlap. And that's what it was. You're full of shite? And well, that may also be the case. So like I only got affiliate because of a raid from perhaps one of the top 5 Tetris streamers. Firestorm 58. So Firestorm 58 is a friend of the stream. If anyone here knows Tetris, like I used to get, I mean, he's still streaming. I should go hang out over there sometimes. But like Firestorm would raid into here and I'd have a bunch of people. And that's how I got affiliate way back when, before I got, it had like people actually watching and talking about philosophy. So it takes a while. But thank you for the 28 months. I do very much appreciate it. I don't know where the money goes. It's like everyone's like, oh yeah, I put it all back in stream. I was like, you think I have any idea where anything happening? I have no idea. Oh, man. Okay, so fine. This was the expected duck out at the end, where you can't maintain your philosophy theory universally. No one can. There's nothing unusual about that. But it's like, yeah. Okay. So another more insidious critique of liberal naturalism, and of course liberal naturalism, for people who haven't been here, it's basically saying you can have all the different viewpoints, philosophical, biological, and physical, but basically the only one that really is fundamental is the physical, like quarks and stuff, but that doesn't matter as long as you can postulate that all the other stuff sort of relate down to the quarks. Not reduced to, but that it supervenes on them, meaning that if anything changes in like one area, it has to also have like a change at the low level. Viper says, I just checked, I'm 15 away from affiliate, damn it. Did we not? Alright, so you can't give yourself a shout out, but we can shout out Vipers. If anyone is not following our buddy Vipers. Oh, it did work. Excellent. No, you did the old style. And of course things are collapsing now. That's annoying. Yeah. That's the old style. What's the fuck? Yeah, that's the old style shout out. And it's of course broken now, cuz something crashed in the background. No, not this. This one. Alerts. There we go. Unreal Brian says, you guys and Aaron should do more of those group convos you did. It's not so easy to organize. Yeah. But yeah, if anyone doesn't know Vipers, he's going to be streaming more soon. And hopefully we'll get back to it. He's just been a little bit trying to figure out the technical details. Because if you didn't realize, streaming is actually kind of weird. And you misuse, like, the complex, and stuff happens and breaks all the fucking time. It's not what you think it is. Okay. So things are slightly broken in the background. There's gonna be a big update to my streaming software soon, and so I tried upgrading it and I fucked it up, and so I think things are breaking even more than they usually were. Yeah, so there was some glitches, but whatever, it's okay. Yeah. You're hoping to stream this weekend? I have now got my Saturday booked. I have to help a friend move, Viper, sorry. So Saturday afternoon is now booked. I don't think I'll be able to make it Saturday afternoon. I just realized that. I'm sorry. Yeah, because a buddy asked me to help move, and so I said I'd do that. Shit. Sorry. Well, we'll see. Depends on what time everything is. Well, it's a big update because it's more like it's scarier more than big in terms of size. It's just very scary. Yeah, go semi-auto-size as much as you like. But yeah. All right. So what's another more insidious critique of liberal naturalism? Another more insidious critique of liberal naturalism acknowledges its conceptual legitimacy but declares its implausibility. Yeah, well, this is interpreting my hand movements, or the little bit of philosophical naturalism. And I can see where you're coming at, because the way the things are related is actually kind of a semiotic sort of thing. Yeah. The hand movements, yeah. Viper says, I think the problem may be my ISP provided router completely crashed yesterday out of nowhere, and my connection was much more stable after the reboot. Yeah, that can happen. I've heard people having to switch up their routers that are provided because, their ISP gave them their bargain basement, whatever router with no RAM in it, and it just couldn't handle what it said it should be able to handle. So it happens. But this is the thing. People say, oh yeah, I'm going to go stream. It'll be easy. Sometimes it is, and sometimes everything breaks on you. I'm also from New York. That's why I have hand movements. Okay, so this critique has been... oh boy, losing it. This critique has been expressed in several ways. One of these ways is based on the burden of proof argument. According to its advocates, scientific naturalism is the default naturalistic conception, and consequently, the onus is on the liberal naturalist to prove that, in principle, the natural sciences cannot account for some aspect of reality. Put another way, it is up to the liberal naturalist to show that some of the real properties of the world will never be reducible to the properties accepted by the natural sciences. Yeah. This argument, however, is not convincing. First, scientific naturalists who, by definition, reject the possibility of non-empirical arguments are not entitled to ask for the liberal naturalist to show that, in principle, some properties of the world are irreducible to its scientific properties. Moreover, by the same yardstick, the liberal naturalist could argue that the burden of proof falls on those who claim that phenomena such as free will, consciousness, and so on can be explained by the natural sciences. It is a two croquet. It's like you can't say I have to explain everything. You have to explain everything. No one can explain everything yet. So you can't do that. Another charge of the implausibility towards liberal naturalism is based on the so-called argument of the great success of science. According to this argument, since the 17th century, natural science has progressively explained or explained away a surprising number of phenomena that previously appeared indecipherable, making it possible to predict and control them. Yeah, how do you explain the tides? No one knows how to do that. On this basis, many scientific naturalists infer that natural science can in principle, also explain venerable philosophical enigmas such as, say, free will, consciousness, intentionality, and personal identity. Yeah, so this is just basically saying, oh, we'll get to all the hard ones, which is dogmatic, but it's saying we will. I mean, it's very optimistic. I think this is kind of crap, but optimism here that science will figure it out somehow. Okay. This argument does not, however, work either. First, it is based on very problematic inductive inference. Why should we infer that, in principle, it is possible to explain phenomena in one domain with explanations that have worked in other domains? Moreover, as it has been noted, it is unclear to which scientific theories the great success of science argument refers. Certainly cannot refer to current theories since they are incapable of solving the problems of free will, consciousness, and so on. On the other hand, we really have no idea what kind of theories could explain such problems, even if they existed. Moreover, when employed against liberal naturalism, the great success of science argument does not appear epistemically sound. In fact, liberal naturalism presupposes that it is rational to believe that some important properties of the world are not reducible to the properties studied by the natural sciences, proclaiming that such properties can in principle be explained by science because the science is inherently capable of doing so, closely resembles a petitio principii. So yeah, this person is even calling out begging the question in the Latin as I just did earlier on them. So I'm sure they're annoyed that I did this if they ever read this paper, see my review. But here's what they're saying is like, look, you can't say that we need to be able to explain all the successes of science going forward because that's like what we do. But like if you're saying you have to be able to explain it, even something that is unexplainable, then you're begging the question, because if you're saying it's unexplainable, then you can't explain it, but you've already said it's unexplainable. Hey, Arethius, how you doing? Yeah, why should we infer that you can explain everything based on the old things that you can explain? Well, clearly they can't explain the new things. We're reading, by the way, hey, Arethius, welcome in. Hope you're doing well. Only Sith deals in absolutes. That's absolutely correct. We're doing this little paper on what is it to be philosophically naturalistic, kind of have the scientific worldview. Okay, so, but again, this is kind of an argument from the hardcore sciences saying it is only science and not the other stuff that explains. And the liberal person is saying, well, you can have different things explain and eventually we'll get there and, do it. But like, it's not a big deal. They're saying it's rational. Like, you can have other ways of explaining things. And, like, just because you're going to explain it eventually with science, you're just begging the question if you think it's all going to fall the way you think it is. Okay. A final way of denying the plausibility to liberal naturalism, where you get to, have different viewpoints, even if it all is physical in the end, consists in insisting on the alleged indubitability of ontological monism. From this point of view, all properties of the world that now appear to us to be ineliminable, and irreducible to properties acceptable to the natural sciences would in fact necessarily be either eliminable or reducible. Yeah, so everything we know now, is probably in the future going to be reducible to something else. Sometimes the emphasis on monism can be justified as a methodological criterion. If, however, monism is regarded as an irrevocable ontological principle, it will not only be contrary to the ordinary worldview, but also to common scientific practice. Today, pluralism is widely accepted even within the natural sciences, and the monistic cause becomes even less promising when the humanities and social sciences are also taken into consideration. Indeed, the idea that pluralism poses a threat to the scientific worldview is anachronistic, and it would be time to abandon it. Yeah, it's like, there can be lots of stuff. Okay, and that's it. That was the end. Okay, so basically this paper argued that, look, you can't really try to reduce everything because that's really, really, really hard and that's a problem. And instead, you should go with this liberal naturalism where it says you can have all the opinions you want. You don't try to reduce it, but you use some other relation. Not saying reductionism, you're saying supervenience, and that's all it is. So everything is naturalistic because everything supervenes on nature, and everything else you want to do is that's cool, and you just go on blah 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 and you can be naturalistic. Okay. And then they went over some criticisms that maybe the naturalists, like the hardcore naturalists, the reductionists want to say, no, it's like everything needs to be reducible to physics. And this person defended themselves against that. Say ineliminable supervenience? Sure. It's a lot harder in paragraph thinking about stuff and saying things. But like when it's like outside of that, I don't actually stutter that much, or I can usually do it pretty quick. Now, am I good at tongue twisters? Not really. I don't have the Walter versus skill at tongue twisters, but like things like this, It's like I could say it. It just every so often it gets stuck trying to do all the different things at once. Ineliminable supervenience. Okay, so what else is there to say about this? Well, I'm not angry with this. This is just a viewpoint. Well, of course, Prometheus, they're designed to be hard to say. But I mean, some people are better at them than others. Like I was saying, the Walterverse, who is a friend of Stream, he's, a professional actor. It's his business to be able to say things well and smoothly. So he may just be practiced at it, whatever it is. He may be naturally good at it. But he has a tongue twister redeem on his channel, at least he used to. And people would try to trip him up, and he could usually do it very quickly. Like, he would get through the tongue twisters fast. You didn't mean to be a jerk. You're not a jerk. It's just, I know you're trying to be funny. Viper says, I was able to trip Anne up with, she stood on the balcony mimicking her hiccuping and amicably welcoming him in. Yeah, that's a pretty good one. Rethia says, I stutter as well a bit, but I can usually recover by thinking of another word. I mean, whatever works, but like, when I'm doing too many things at once, I can end up stuttering or breaking up over words, but, once I'm not like doing 4 things at once, trying to read chat, the paper, and think about stuff, and run stream, like, then it's like, I don't normally do it. Margaret Thatcher on a cold day. Well, that you just make me like shiver. They said Cicero had a stutter. I probably heard that at some point before, but I did not remember that. I mean, this is one of those like curses of like some great orator, and he was the best orator in history. I mean, yeah, it's like great orator, but like he couldn't always do it himself. Yeah. Yeah, so she stood on the balcony mimicking his hiccuping and amicably welcoming him in. See, I can do it. I don't know if I could do it a few times in a row, but like, yeah. His full name was Ciso. That's it. Oh, that's terrible. Cinesemiatics. Okay. Lady Gaga has one too. Interesting. I was talking to someone with a stammer, and he said he doesn't stammer when he's singing. It's like, it's a different sort of thing. And so it's interesting. Oh, God damn it, Vipers. Rethia says he didn't need anyone to do it for him. He stuttered and showed weakness a bit, and then he recovered, and it was something people latched onto. Gave him a little bit of truth. Yeah, I mean, Biden has a stammer. I don't think anyone in the U.S. thinks of it as endearing, though. But that's more to say more about U.S. Politics than Biden. Yeah. Oh, you speak publicly for your career. That's true. You definitely are training people. So like that is your business. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, it was one of these funny things. It's like it's hard to speak and then you're expected to do it. So, anywho, about Anne, welcome back. But like, need to give Anne a shout out. Anne is also a streamer here on twitch.tv/AnneFernal. And does a bunch of variety here on Twitch and on other sites. You can check her out, all of her other content too. And yeah, say hi. She's a great streamer and a lot of fun in front of the stream. Does sociology and political philosophy and Marxism and things like that. But you can talk to her about other things. And she's very well read. So, give her a follow if you have not. Though I suspect we've got mostly regulars here at the moment. But hey, there might be other people in. Welcome by. Say hi if you want to or don't. It's fine. I like lurkers, and if you don't want to be called out, that's cool. Okay, is there anything else to be said here? This was a pretty straightforward paper. Basically, they did the reductionist view of science first, and then they did the non-reductionist supervenient view second. They are clearly in the second camp. They don't want to say, all right, everything's going to reduce down to like physics, but what they're going to do is you can supervene on it. I don't think this works because I also hate supervenience. Maybe I'm just biased, but they basically write here this terrible paragraph. You end up begging the question. And then they defended themselves from here. So that's what's going on. Anyone else have anything else? Or we'll get a little review done, and then that'll be it for this stream. I mean, I've been going for, 2 hours and 40 minutes at this point. Always more to be said? Yeah, sure. Stream Deck only crashed once today or twice. It's cool. All right, so let's give it a review. If anyone wants to join in, what you do is you grab one of these emotes, you copy it over, you use the text on the screen here. And yeah, so did this have any fun ideas? I don't really think it did. Like that's brain dance. Any fun ideas? Like whoop doo 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 doo. No. Grapes did it have big claims that shriveled up. Maybe they were claiming like what is modern naturalism today. Well, they didn't make any big claims though. Actually, they just said we're gonna describe what it is to be naturalist. So I don't know. But this is navel gazing. This is navel gazing philosophy. This is basically arguing against someone else. So this is getting a few nog navel. This is going to get two nog navel. So it's getting two navel gazing. Ouroboros, deep ancient mysteries, big ideas. Nah, maybe does scientific stuff count as that? Talking. Rethius, navel gazing is basically talking to other philosophers. Viper says it. Okay, so Vipers gave it a golden turd. It thinks it didn't really do what it wanted to do. It basically was just talking to other philosophers or to themselves. That's navel gazing, when you're just talking to yourself or other people who are interested in it. And then gave it the grapes, which means it didn't even like do what it said it was going to do here. Why is talking to other philosophers worthy of scorn? It's not necessarily. It's just that it's not very interesting to other people. That's all. You know, if it's just a philosophical topic, like this paper spent a lot of time describing the difference between reducing philosophy that reduces to science versus one that is non-reducing to science. Is that really what other people are very interested in? Maybe, maybe not, but it's basically only interesting to people in that scientific area. I would have liked what they were doing, but yeah, navel gazing. So Unreal Bribe gives a navel gazing. Preaching to the choir, yeah. So that's what it is. Because this is one of the things about philosophies. A lot of times they're talking about other philosophers, and it isn't really all that, interesting to other people. Did they fail at what they were doing? I don't really think I'm going to give them a golden turd. It wasn't a lot of highfalutin shit. It was just sort of that, what it was. It's going to get some nog knife because it had, they presented some arguments. That's what they were doing. They were doing a little bit of argumentation. In this, do I think it was that good? Nah, it was whatever. No existential stuff. It wasn't all style, no substance. So yeah, I'm going to go with the grapes too, actually. So, nog grapes. That, and is this going to get a yay or a nay from me? Y'all got through the lesson and started thinking about your own ideas. No, this is the whole point, is that like have some ideas, do stuff, and like you can just copy if you don't see the emotes, you can just copy the text. Yeah, so Vipers give it a nay. So this is funny, like this isn't a bad paper, like it's just not bad, it's just not that great. You have to be interested in it. So it's like you just got to be interested in this stuff. Now, is this really that interesting? Not like super interesting. It's very navel gazy, but like if you're okay with that, like it's okay. I don't think it was a bad paper, so I'm gonna give this a vote yay, but with a bunch of the navel gazing. So it's like if you're interested in the navel gazing stuff, yeah, I'm gonna give it 3 nog navels actually. So that's what we get. So this is yes, but you have to want to read this. That's what that is. And so this is why I have the multivalence rating system. It's good, but only if you're interested in it. And I can represent that with 3 navels and a yes. So, yeah, so Viper says no. We got an Unreal Brian says we got a nog navel. Yeah, and so anyone else is willing or wanting to, whatever, jump in on the review. You're going to have another minute or so to do that. Just let me know. A mutant 3 navel creature. Exactly. But like, was there argumentation bad? Not really. This presented some technical arguments about this area. You missed 9. You were free to argue. I am not actually gatekeeping on who gets to review. If you come in late and you want to review it one way or the other, go ahead. If you don't, fine too. Fine too. So it's that's it. It's like if you think this was like not that interesting or whatever, it's fine. Just give it a no. If you think it was kind of interesting, give it a yay. Like that's how it goes. Yeah, and if you don't have an opinion, that's fine too. It's fine. But like this is the thing. It had like a few good ideas over here. Well, it didn't really have good ideas. It kind of talked about a few different concepts in this area. Like, can we just eliminate all the non-scientific views? Not really. Can you reduce everything down to like physics? Not really. And then this person just hand waves at the supervenience, and it's like, all right. It's like, yes, but like supervenience is such a weak concept that you're really not explaining anything other than saying you don't want to be mystical. And saying that is just not that interesting to me. It's like, okay, you don't want to be mystical. Fine. But you haven't actually accomplished much at that point. It's a negative definition, and you're not really giving it a whole lot. So that's why I got the grapes. Because it's promised to give like some sort of, justification for naturalism or what it is, and it really didn't give a whole lot of that. So this is just my explanation of what it is. Well, mysticism generally pisses you off. That's fair. But in this area, it's just gatekeepy. Is because they're saying the only thing that matters is science, and by definition, anything else is not it. And so it's by definition, and it didn't really help. You're okay when it minds its own business, but that's what it is. It was a negative definition here. It's like anything not mysticism, it's like only natural. That's what we're talking about. So that's what they're saying is like, it's just a negative definition, like not mystical stuff. That's what we're talking about here, but that's not explanatory because it doesn't say what mysticism is either. Well, yeah, it's very much appreciated when it does not recruit. No one, God, getting the proselytizing is irritating. Okay. But I mean, again, if you are interested in this sort of thing. I'm going back to the invisible, non-existent thing. Yeah, but see, that's what it is. They're defining themselves out of that problem, but that doesn't mean, that doesn't do anything for me. It's like, okay, yeah, you can just say you don't like it, but like that's fair. But if you didn't define what it was or give some sort of real interesting, making an interesting claim about it, what's that worth? You're just saying, oh yeah, no, we're the grounded people. We're the one talking about science, not that evil mysticism. But you're just saying you don't say what mysticism is. It's like, all right, fine. It's by definition. You're not mystical. Cool, but you haven't given me anything interesting to talk about or think about either. Yeah, I think it goes back. There's another version called Russell's Teapot. It says like if you're postulating something that like is out of our like you can't see it, like how do you know it's there? Well, yes. I mean, if we're gonna get into specific religions, yeah, a lot of them are problematic. And Mormons can be problematic. Okay, so that'll be it for this review session. Get a few more seconds to get it in. Yeah, exactly. Well, this is not a bash Mormonism stream at the moment. That wasn't the plan. But yeah. So, okay, so this was this. And yeah.